Bullied for being different, they never saw the champion coming. Marcus Elliott shuffled through the crowded hallways of Westridge High School, his lanky 6'1" frame hunched, as if trying to disappear. At 15, he was all awkward angles and jutting elbows, his pale skin dotted with acne that no amount of medication seemed to help. His thick glasses constantly slid down his nose, and his mousy brown hair fell in uneven clumps across his forehead. New to the school after his family's move from Oregon, Marcus had quickly learned that Westridge operated on an unspoken social hierarchy, one that had immediately relegated him to the bottom. Just make it to lunch without incident. That's all you need to do right now, Marcus thought as he navigated the sea of students. His oversized second-hand clothes hung from his thin frame, making him look even more like the outsider he felt. What nobody at Westridge knew, what nobody could possibly guess looking at him, was that back in Oregon, Marcus had been a state champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. For 7 years, he had trained religiously, earning his brown belt by 14 and competing successfully against opponents who underestimated him because of his build. But that was before his father lost his job and they'd been forced to move, before money became too tight for competition fees or private lessons, before his mother got sick and his priorities shifted entirely. Well, if it isn't String Bean. The voice cut through Marcus's thoughts like a blade. Damon Reynolds stood blocking Marcus's path, flanked by his ever-present sidekicks, Tyler Kemp and Brandon Walsh. Damon was the undisputed king of Westridge, quarterback, student body president, and son of the town's mayor. With his perfect hair, expensive clothes, and confident smirk, he was everything Marcus was not. Tyler and Brandon were typical followers, both on the football team, both built like brick walls, both echoing whatever Damon said. Got a hall pass, String Bean? Or are you just wandering around looking pathetic as usual? Damon's voice carried, drawing attention from surrounding students who either snickered or quickly averted their eyes. Marcus stared at his worn-out sneakers. I'm just going to class. He's just going to class, Damon mimicked in a high-pitched voice that sounded nothing like Marcus's. Better hurry then. Wouldn't want to be late and disappoint the teachers. Only thing you're good for, right? Marcus said nothing, trying to step around them, but Tyler shifted to block his path. Around them, students hurried to their own classes, some glancing at the confrontation with mild interest, others deliberately looking away. Mrs. Harmon, the English teacher, walked past, frowning slightly but continuing on without comment. Excuse me, Marcus muttered, clutching his textbooks tighter to his chest. I need to get to biology. Hear that, guys? String Bean needs to get to biology. Probably the only place where anyone cares about him. A petri dish full of bacteria. Damon laughed at his own joke, Tyler and Brandon dutifully joining in. You could take all three of them down in under a minute. Arm bar on Damon, sweep Tyler's. Legs rear naked choke on Brandon. The thought flashed through Marcus's mind with startling clarity before he pushed it away. Fighting wasn't an option. Not here, not now. His father's words echoed in his mind. We're starting over, son. No trouble. Promise me. So instead, Marcus did what he'd been doing for the past 3 months. He absorbed the humiliation, kept his head down, and waited for an opening to escape. When the warning bell rang, Damon finally stepped aside, but not before knocking Marcus's books from his hands, sending papers flying across the hallway floor. Oops, Damon said with a smirk. Butterfingers. Students stepped over or on Marcus's scattered belongings as he knelt to gather them, his face burning with shame. By the time he made it to biology, he was 5 minutes late, earning a disapproving look from Mr. Patterson and a few more snickers from classmates. The cafeteria at Westridge High was a war zone of social politics. Marcus had learned to find a table at the far edge, near the emergency exit, where he could eat quickly and attract minimal attention. Today's lunch was an unappetizing serving of what the menu optimistically called meatloaf, but which resembled a brown brick more than food. He had just taken his first bite when a shadow fell across his tray. This seat taken, String Bean. Without waiting for an answer, Damon dropped into the chair across from Marcus, while Tyler and Brandon took positions on either side, effectively boxing him in. Marcus swallowed hard. What do you want? Just being friendly, Damon said, his smile never reaching his eyes. Thought the new kid might appreciate some company. He reached across and grabbed Marcus's chocolate milk, opening it and taking a long swig before setting it down. So, Oregon, right? What did you do there, besides being a loser, I mean? Marcus stared at his tray. 3 seconds to break his wrist if he reaches for my food again. Another 2 to get to my feet. Nothing special. Nothing special, Damon repeated. Yeah, that tracks. He looked around the cafeteria, making sure they had an audience. You know what I think? I think you're hiding something. Nobody's this boring. Marcus remained silent, pushing his food around with his fork. Across the cafeteria, he noticed Eliza Chen watching the scene with a slight frown. She was one of the few people who had actually spoken to him since he'd arrived, partnering with him on a chemistry project without complaint. Their eyes met briefly before she looked away. What's the matter, Stringbean? Cat got your tongue? Brandon asked, reaching over to flick Marcus's ear. Marcus flinched away. Please just leave me alone. Leave me alone, Tyler mimicked. God, what a pussy. Damon leaned forward, lowering his voice theatrically. Here's some advice, new kid. You want to survive at Westridge? Learn your place. And your place. He jabbed, a finger into Marcus's chest, is wherever we tell you it is. With that, he stood up, deliberately knocking Marcus's tray into his lap. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes splattered across Marcus's jeans and shirt. The cafeteria erupted in laughter as Damon, Tyler, and Brandon sauntered away, high-fiving each other. Miss Reeves, the cafeteria monitor, finally approached. Let's get you cleaned up, she said, offering Marcus a handful of napkins while shooting a disapproving look in Damon's direction. But like every other adult at Westridge, she did nothing more. One armbar, that's all it would take. One simple move and Damon wouldn't be smirking anymore. Marcus pushed the thought away as he headed to the bathroom to clean up as best he could. The gym locker room was perhaps the most dangerous territory in Westridge High School. With minimal supervision and plenty of corners where teachers couldn't see, it was a perfect hunting ground for people like Damon. Marcus had learned to change quickly, to keep his back to the wall, to be in and out before trouble could find him. Today he wasn't fast enough. Stringbean, just the man we were looking for. Damon's voice echoed off the tiled walls as Marcus was pulling his gym shirt over his head. Marcus froze. Most of the other boys had already headed out to the gymnasium, leaving him alone with Damon, Tyler, and Brandon. Coach Burke was notorious for staying in his office until the last possible moment, meaning no help would come from that direction. What do you want? Marcus asked, hating the slight tremor in his voice. Just curious about something, Damon said, casually leaning against the lockers. Been wondering why you change so fast every day, almost like you're hiding something. Marcus said nothing, quickly pulling on his gym shorts, but he wasn't fast enough. What the hell? Tyler exclaimed, pointing at Marcus's exposed legs. Check out the bruises, man. Marcus cursed silently. He'd been careless. The fading yellow and purple marks across his shins and thighs, remnants from his last training sessions before they'd moved, were clearly visible. Daddy beat you, Stringbean? Damon asked with mock concern. Or did you just fall down a lot? Clumsy as you are, I'd believe it. It's nothing, Marcus muttered, finishing changing and attempting to move past them. Toward the gym, Brandon stepped into his path. Doesn't look like nothing. Looks like somebody used you as a punching bag. He poked Marcus hard in the chest. Who knew Stringbean bruised so easily? Sweep the leg, control the descent, apply pressure to the throat until he taps out. The techniques ran through Marcus's mind automatically, muscle memory from hundreds of hours of training. He took a deep breath. I need to get to class. He tried to step around Brandon but found himself suddenly shoved back against the lockers, the metal handles digging painfully into his back. We're not done talking, Damon said, his voice dropping. Any pretense of friendliness. See, there's this tradition at Westridge. New kids have to pay a fee, call it insurance. $20 a week keeps accidents from happening. Marcus blinked. You're trying to extort money from me? Damon's eyes narrowed. Big word for a stringbean, but yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So what's it gonna be? I don't have any money, Marcus said honestly. His lunch account was on the free program, and he hadn't had pocket money since they'd moved. Wrong answer. Damon nodded to Tyler, who grabbed Marcus's arm and twisted it behind his back. Drop your weight, rotate through the hold, counter with an elbow strike. The instructions from his sensei were clear in his mind, but so was his promise. To his father, no trouble. Check his locker, Damon ordered Brandon, who spun the combination lock on Marcus's locker. When it didn't open, he looked to Damon. Combination? Damon demanded. Marcus stayed silent, which earned him a harder twist of his arm from Tyler. Pain shot through his shoulder. All right, 10-22-36, he gasped. Brandon spun the lock and yanked open the door, rummaging through Marcus's meager belongings. He pulled out Marcus's worn wallet, opening it to find nothing but a school ID and a faded family photo. He really is broke, Brandon confirmed, tossing the wallet to the floor. Damon's eyes hardened. Then I guess we'll have to take payment another way. The first punch caught Marcus in the stomach, driving the air from his lungs. As he doubled over, a second blow clipped his ear, sending a ringing through his head. Years of training had taught him how to take a hit, how to roll with the impact, but the surprise and the confined space of the locker room left him at a disadvantage. Block, counter, take control of the center. His body screamed to fight back, but his mind held firm to his promise. No trouble. Not so tough now, are you, Stringbean? Damon taunted, as Tyler held Marcus's arms and Brandon kept lookout. Maybe next time you'll come prepared. The final blow caught him in the ribs, and then they let him drop to the floor, gasping for breath. This was just a down payment, Damon said, straightening his Letterman jacket. We'll collect the rest later. They left him there on the cold tile floor, the sound of the gym door swinging shut behind them. Marcus slowly pulled himself up, checking his injuries. Nothing broken, just bruised. He'd had worse in competition. You could destroy them, a voice in his head insisted. You've taken down opponents twice their size. No trouble, he whispered to himself, retrieving his wallet and closing his locker. I promised. When he finally entered the gymnasium 5 minutes late, Coach Burke barely glanced his way. Nice of you to join us, Elliot. 5 extra laps for tardiness. Marcus nodded, silently, ignoring the smirks from Damon and his friends as he began to run. Each step sent pain through his bruised ribs, but he kept his face neutral. This wasn't the first time he'd trained through pain, and it wouldn't be the last. The next few weeks fell into a predictable pattern. Damon and his cronies seemed to take special pleasure in making Marcus's life miserable, finding him between classes, in the cafeteria, after school. The verbal jabs and occasional shoves were constant, punctuated by more serious incidents in the blind spots of Westridge High's inadequate supervision. Marcus weathered it all silently, becoming more withdrawn with each passing day. At home, he said nothing about the bullying, knowing his parents had enough to worry about with his mother's treatments and his father's endless job search. Instead, he quietly practiced his jiu-jitsu forms in his bedroom each night, the familiar movements a comfort in a world that seemed increasingly hostile. But Eliza Chen had noticed. She caught up with him in the library one afternoon, sliding into the chair across from him with a determined expression. You know you don't have to take it, right? She said without preamble. Marcus looked up from his algebra textbook. Take what? Don't play dumb. The way Damon and his goons treat you. It's not right. Marcus shrugged, wincing slightly at the pull on his still tender ribs. It's fine, I can handle it. That's not the point, Eliza insisted. Nobody should have to handle being treated like that. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Why? Don't you tell someone? Principal Winters might be useless, but my mom's on the school board. She could... No, Marcus cut her off. No adults, no complaints. That only makes it worse. Eliza studied him for a moment. Then why don't you fight back? I mean, not that I'm advocating violence, but they'd probably back off if you stood up to them once. For a brief moment, Marcus considered telling her the truth about his training, about his promise, about the constant battle he fought every day not to put Damon Reynolds in the hospital. Instead, he just shook his head. It's complicated, he said finally, but thanks for caring, not many people here do. Eliza looked like she wanted to say more, but just then her phone buzzed with a text. I've got to go. Debate team meeting. But this conversation isn't over, Marcus. She gathered her books and left, leaving Marcus staring after her with a mixture of gratitude and apprehension. Someone noticed, he thought, and somehow that made everything both better and worse. The breaking point came 3 weeks later on High, a rainy Thursday afternoon. Marcus had stayed late to make up a chemistry test he'd missed during one of his mother's hospital appointments. The hallways were nearly empty when he finally emerged from the science wing, most students having already left for the day. He was almost to the main exit when he heard voices from around the corner, angry, insistent voices that made him instinctively pause. I told you I don't have it. It was a girl's voice, tight with fear. Eliza, and I told you that's not good enough. Damon's reply was cold. Your fancy mom can afford to replace a stupid laptop. Consider it a donation to the athletic department. Marcus peered around the corner. Damon had Eliza backed against the lockers, Tyler and Brandon positioned to block any escape. Her face was flushed with anger and fear, her normally confident posture diminished as she clutched her laptop bag protectively to her chest. My research. Paper is on here, she was saying. I've been working on it for months. Please just... Don't care, Damon cut her off, reaching for the bag. Hand it over, or we'll take it. Something in Marcus shifted, a line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. This isn't about me anymore. Without conscious thought, he stepped around the corner. Leave her alone. All 4 heads turned toward him, expressions ranging from surprise to amusement. Well, look who found his voice, Damon drawled. Stringbean to the rescue. How cute. Marcus, don't, Eliza warned, her eyes wide. Just go. Marcus took another step forward. Something in his posture must have changed, some hint of the fighter he'd been hiding all these months, because Tyler and Brandon exchanged an uncertain glance. I said, "Leave her alone." His voice was steady now, all trace of fear gone. "Walk." "Away, Damon." Damon's face darkened. "Or what, you'll cry on me?" He turned to his friends. "Looks like Stringbean needs another lesson in respecting his betters." He gestured to Tyler and Brandon, who moved toward Marcus with confident smirks. They'd beaten him before, they expected to do it again. 3 seconds, Marcus thought calmly. That's all it will take. Tyler reached him first, swinging a meaty fist at Marcus's head with all the finesse of someone who'd never needed technique when brute force had always been enough. Marcus didn't dodge, he didn't block, he slipped. In one fluid motion, he stepped inside Tyler's swing, redirecting the force while simultaneously sweeping the larger boy's front leg. Tyler hit the ground with a surprised grunt, the back of his head connecting with the linoleum floor hard enough to daze him. Brandon hesitated for only a fraction of a second before charging, trying to use his football tackling skills. Marcus pivoted, using Brandon's momentum against him, adding a hip throw that sent the second boy flying into a bank of lockers with a resounding crash. What the hell? Damon's confident smirk had vanished, replaced by confusion and the first flickers of fear. Marcus said nothing, simply settling into a fighting stance that would have been instantly recognizable to anyone familiar with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. His breathing was steady, his eyes focused, his body balanced and ready. Tyler was struggling to his feet, shaking his head to clear it. Brandon remained on the floor, the wind knocked out of him by the impact. Damon looked from them to Marcus, visibly recalculating. "You're dead, Stringbean," he spat, pulling back his fist. Marcus didn't wait for the attack. He moved forward, blocking Damon's wild punch with an economy of motion that spoke of years of training. His counter was a perfectly executed front kick to Damon's solar plexus, just enough force to drop the quarterback to his knees, gasping for breath. "My name," Marcus said calmly, "is Marcus. Not Stringbean, not New Kid. Marcus Elliott." He turned to Eliza, who was staring at him with wide eyes. "Are you okay?" She nodded mutely, clutching her laptop bag like a lifeline. Marcus turned back to Damon, who was still on his knees, face red with exertion and humiliation. Tyler had managed to get to his feet, but was keeping his distance now, and Brandon was only just starting to sit up, holding his side. "This ends now," Marcus said, his voice carrying in the empty hallway. "You don't touch me again. You don't touch her again. You don't touch anyone in this school again. Do you understand?" Damon glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes. "You think this changes anything? Do you know who my father is?" "I don't care if your father is the president," Marcus replied evenly. "This has nothing to do with him. This is between you and me." He crouched down to meet Damon's eyes. "And right now, you're the one on the ground." For a moment it looked like Damon might try to fight again. Then the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway, a janitor or late-staying teacher coming to investigate the noise. "This isn't over," Damon hissed, struggling to his feet. "Yes, it is," Marcus said with quiet confidence. "Because next time I won't hold back." He glanced at Tyler and Brandon. "That goes for all of you." With that, he turned, gently took Eliza's elbow, and led her toward the exit, leaving the 3 bullies to deal with whoever was coming down the hall. They didn't speak until they were outside, the rain having slowed to a light drizzle. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars belonging to teachers and staff still scattered around. What was that?" Eliza finally asked, her voice unsteady. "How did you—" Marcus sighed, pushing his glasses up his nose. "I competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 7 years, state champion in Oregon, 3 years running." Her eyes widened. "You're a fighter? But all this time they've been—" "I promised my dad no trouble," Marcus explained. "We moved here because he lost his job and my mom got sick. They needed me to keep my head down, stay out of fights. So I did." "Until now," Eliza pointed out. Marcus nodded. "Until they went after someone else." He looked at her carefully. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine," she assured him. "Just processing." "Why didn't you ever say anything about being a fighter?" Marcus shrugged. "What was I supposed to say? Hey, I'm Marcus. Please don't bully me because I can actually break your arm in 3 places. Besides, it didn't seem important anymore. We can't afford the training fees here, and I haven't competed since we moved." Eliza shook her head in amazement. "Well, I think it's safe to say your secret's out now." Marcus grimaced. "Yeah, my dad's going to kill me." "Your dad should be proud of you," Eliza said firmly. "You didn't start that fight, you stopped it. There's a difference." The next day at Westridge High School was markedly different from any that had come before. Word of the confrontation had spread like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each retelling. By first period, Marcus had supposedly knocked out all 3 football players with a single roundhouse kick. By lunch, he was being described as an underground cage fighter who had only been pretending to be weak. The stares followed him everywhere. Curious, admiring, wary, people who had never spoken to him suddenly found reasons to say hello in the hallway. Teachers watched him with new awareness, as if seeing him for the first time. Damon and his friends were conspicuously absent, rumored to be sporting injuries they didn't want to display publicly. Marcus had heard from Eliza, whose mother really was on the school board, that Damon's father had been called in for a meeting with Principal Winters after security camera footage of the incident had been reviewed. Marcus was sitting alone at his usual cafeteria table when Eliza appeared, setting down her tray across from him. "Mind if I join you?" she asked with a smile. "Please," he said, genuinely happy to see her. She wasn't the only one. A few minutes later, 2 more students, Jamal from his math class and Diego from chemistry, approached hesitantly. "Hey, Marcus, can we sit here?" Jamal asked. Marcus blinked in surprise, then nodded. "Sure." By the time lunch was half over, there were 6 people at his formerly empty table, the conversation flowing naturally, as if they'd been friends for years. Marcus found himself laughing for what felt like the first time since moving to Westridge. The confrontation with Principal Winters came during 6th period. A note arrived from the office, summoning Marcus immediately. He made the walk with a strange calm, knowing that whatever punishment awaited him, it had been worth it. To his surprise, his father was already in the principal's office, looking tired but not angry. Principal Winters, a thin man with perpetually pursed lips, gestured for Marcus to take a seat. "Mr. Elliott, I've been reviewing the security footage from yesterday's incident," Principal Winters began. "While I understand there may have been provocation, this school has a zero-tolerance policy for fighting." Marcus nodded, accepting this. "I understand, sir." His father cleared his throat. "Before you continue, Principal Winters, I'd like to point out that the footage clearly shows my son defending another student from harassment. From what I saw, he used minimal force to neutralize a threat." Principal Winters frowned. "Minimal or not, Mr. Elliott, 3 students ended up requiring medical attention. 3 students who have been systematically bullying others for months," Marcus's father countered, "including my son who has the bruises to prove it. Bruises that were reported to staff members who took no action." Marcus stared at his father in surprise. How did he know? Principal Winters shifted uncomfortably. "There have been no formal complaints filed because victims of bullying rarely file formal complaints," Marcus's father interrupted. "They fear retaliation. They don't trust the system to protect them. And from what I'm hearing right now, they're right not to." There was a tense silence. Then Principal Winters sighed. "Given the circumstances and the fact that Mr. Elliott was defending another student, I'm willing to reduce the standard suspension to 3 days. But I want to be clear. Any further fighting for any reason will result in more severe consequences." Marcus nodded again. "Yes, sir." As they left the office, Marcus turned to his father. "How did you know? About the bullying?" His father's expression was sad. "I didn't. Not until Eliza's mother called me last night after Eliza told her everything." "Why didn't you say something, son?" Marcus looked down. "You had enough to worry about, and you made me promise no trouble." His father stopped walking, placing his hands on Marcus's shoulders. "I asked you not to start trouble. I never meant for you to endure it silently." He sighed deeply. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I should have seen what was happening." "It's okay, Dad." "Really?" "No, it's not, but it will be." His father squeezed his shoulders once before letting go. "By the way, I found a job yesterday. Nothing fancy, but it's steady work with decent pay. And there's a jiu-jitsu academy about 20 minutes from our house. If you're interested in training again." For the first time in months, Marcus felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "I'd like that. A lot." When Marcus returned to school after his suspension, the landscape had shifted dramatically. Damon Reynolds had been suspended for 2 weeks, with Tyler and Brandon receiving similar punishments. More significantly, Damon's father, supposedly furious about the entire situation, had pulled some strings to transfer his son to a private school across town, effectively removing the head of the bullying triangle. The remaining students at Westridge seemed to move differently in the halls now, less fearful, more at ease. Marcus found himself with a widening circle of friends, no longer the invisible new kid, but someone people actually wanted to know. In the locker room before gym one day, Brandon approached him cautiously. Without his leader, the former bully seemed smaller somehow, less certain. "Hey, Marcus, can I talk to you for a second?" he asked. his usual bravado noticeably absent. Marcus tensed slightly but nodded. Sure. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. I just wanted to say, about before. All that stuff we did. He stared at his shoes. It was messed up, and I'm sorry. It wasn't a particularly eloquent apology, but it seemed genuine. Marcus studied him for a moment before extending his hand. Okay. Brandon looked surprised, then relieved as he shook Marcus's hand. So, I heard you're some kind of jiu-jitsu expert or something? I wouldn't say expert, Marcus replied with a small smile, but I know a few things. Brandon hesitated, then asked, do you think maybe you could show me sometime, not to hurt people or anything, just, it seems cool. Marcus considered this unexpected request. Yeah, I think I could do that. 2 months later, Marcus stood at the center of the Westridge High Gymnasium, dressed in his old gi that still fit, despite a few inches of ankle showing at the bottom. Before him were 20 students of varying ages and sizes, all in workout clothes, all watching him, expectantly. Principal Winters had finally approved his proposal for an after-school self-defense club, with Marcus as the student instructor and Coach Burke reluctantly supervising. The first thing you need to understand about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Marcus, began, his voice clear and confident, is that it's not about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about technique, leverage, and using your opponent's energy against them. He looked out at the faces watching him. Eliza in the front row, grinning encouragingly, Brandon surprisingly attentive next to her, Jamal and Diego behind them, and a dozen others he was just getting to know. The second thing, he continued, is that this is never about hurting people. It's about protecting yourself and others, about standing up when standing up is necessary, but always with control. As he began demonstrating the first basic stance, Marcus caught sight of his father watching proudly from the doorway. He smiled, feeling for the first time since moving to Westridge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. The string bean had found his strength, not just in his hidden talents, but in the courage to finally use them for the right reasons.